You're listening to Space in Between, a podcast for the beautifully messy, the stuff we usually whisper, and the uncomfortable truths we prefer not to face. I'm Vesna, and I'm not here to fix you or offer you a 5-step plan for how to become a better adult. I'm here to notice what often goes unseen and question the stories we've come to accept as true. In the last episode, we talked about internalized sexism, how women sometimes become the enforcers of the very system that limits them. Today, we're diving into another layered and often overlooked topic. We're talking about adultism, a deeply ingrained belief system that says adults know best and young people should earn the right to be taken seriously. I never planned to be in psychoeducation. I kind of fell into it. Mindfulness, coaching. But behind the calm voice, I was walking on eggshells. There was a rule book. Yeah, no thanks. I ask questions. I live in the gray zones. This is space in between. No fluff, no filters. Welcome. You're in the right place. Adultism is the belief that adults are naturally more important or capable than young people. It shows up when we dismiss their opinions, limit their choices, or ignore their voices just because of their age. It's the only form of discrimination that nearly every adult participates in, and most of us don't even notice. Let's start with the classic script. You'll understand when you're older. They're just lazy. Gen Z doesn't want to work. They are offended by everything. They have no resilience. Honestly, I'm getting tired of it. The constant generational divide. This exhausting need to mock or dismiss younger people as soft, entitled, or dramatic has nothing to do with facts. It has everything to do with control. Because what makes us so uncomfortable about generation that questions the system we've just accepted? Maybe they're not the problem. Maybe the problem is that we've gotten too good at settling. And here's the twist. Every generation was once the problem. Too loud, too idealistic, too impatient. And yet, if we zoom out, every major shift in culture, politics, art, and science was sparked by people exactly that age. We celebrate youth when it's obedient, charming, easy to ignore. We post their art, quote their passion, and applaud their fresh perspective as long as it does not make us uncomfortable. But the moment their clarity threatens our comfort, the moment they stop asking for permission and start demanding accountability, we pull back. We don't fear youth because they're naive. We fear them because they haven't yet learned to shrink themselves to fit our broken systems. Let me tell you something that deeply moved me. The students in Serbia, the ones who organized protests, showed up in the thousands and refused to be treated like background noise. They didn't just react, they led, they articulated, they stayed. And they shifted the narrative across the country. Even people who never took young voices seriously suddenly started listening. They reminded us that young people aren't the future, they're the present, and they're already changing it. And just to be clear, this is space in between. I'm not saying all adults dismiss young people. And I'm not saying every idea from a young person is brilliant. This isn't about idolizing one group or demonizing another. It's about staying curious, noticing power dynamics, and making space for complexity. No black and white thinking here, just room to question, reflect, and grow. And yes, of course, they still have space to grow, to unlearn, to gain more context as life gets harder, more complicated, more nuanced. But guess what? So do we. We act like growing up makes us wise, but too often it just makes us rigid. So sure of our own truth, so allergic to being questioned. Since when did adulthood mean we stopped being curious? I became an entrepreneur at 26. I was leading workshops, training groups, developing programs. And I had older people in the room. Some were brilliantly supportive, wise enough to recognize value beyond age. They offered kind words, shared encouragement, gave me the confidence I didn't even know I needed. I'll never forget that generosity. But others didn't believe a word I said. Not because I was wrong, but because I said it. Because of my age, my tone, my appearance, my delivery. And now I catch myself doing it. Judging someone younger, brushing off their insight because it comes in a format I didn't grow up with. And I hate it. So I practice something called beginner's mind. Not clinging to what I think I know, but choosing curiosity over certainty. It doesn't mean pretending I have no answers. It doesn't mean doubting everything I've learned. It means staying open, especially when it threatens my ego. Especially when someone younger, less experienced, or simply different says something that unsettles me. Because more often than not, the voices that makes us uncomfortable are the ones holding up a mirror we most need to face. So let's talk about how adultism actually works. It doesn't scream. It disguises itself as common sense. She's too emotional. He's too radical. They are too young to understand the bigger picture. But maybe it's not that they don't understand. Maybe it's that they haven't been trained to ignore their gut the way we have, to numb the discomfort, to rationalize the injustice, to say, that's just how it is. And yeah, sometimes they will get it wrong. But sometimes, so do we. Only we are too proud to admit it. Adultism hides in how we frame things. We say, they're so entitled. But maybe they just have boundaries we never learned to set. We say, they take things too personally. But maybe they're just refusing to be known. We say, they think they know everything. But maybe it's not arrogance. Maybe it's clarity before the world teaches them to second guess it. The most dangerous part? It dresses up as love, concern, or just trying to help. I'm just trying to prepare them for the real world. They'll thank me later. I lived longer. I know better. But maybe the real world needs changing. And maybe knowing better doesn't mean we are better. So here is where to start changing this narrative. Not with a lecture, not with a statement, with a pause. Catch the moment, the eye roll, the instinct to interrupt, the subtle urge to explain instead of ask, to reassert authority when younger voice speaks with too much clarity. And then ask yourself, would I say this to someone my age? Would I question them this way if they were older? Because adultism isn't just about how we talk to young people. It's about how much space we let them take up. How quickly we shrink that space when their truth challenge ours. How we measure their value by how well they mirror us instead of how sharply they see things we stopped questioning. If we're serious about building real intergenerational spaces, not just events and slogans, but actual power shared and ego stepped aside, we have to stop performing openness and start practicing it. Especially when their voices are louder, braver, and more certain than we are comfortable with. Especially when they're not asking for our guidance, but for change. Because wisdom does not live in years. It lives in the guts to stay humble and keep learning. So next time a young person speaks, don't prepare to put back. Oh, open to the tension, the shift, the truth you didn't expect. Open to the possibility that they are not here to follow our footsteps. They're here to create new ground. And in the next episode, we're diving into gaslighting. Not just the obvious kind, but the subtle kind that shows up in relationships, in workplaces, in families, even in how we gaslight ourselves. We'll unpack how truth gets distorted, how doubt gets planted, and why it's so hard to trust yourself when the ground keeps shifting beneath you. See you next time in the space between knowing better and still being willing to grow. Stay uncomfortable.